Alright, let's talk about Phenax again. So, it's been great. A lot of you lads have given me some good ideas for him, some solid thoughts. Such as Paul Gaither, he said, asked me, am I building a Phenax deck, just some blue-black deck, or am I building a deck about Phenax? Which is interesting. Which means, okay, so I'll go through the gather, go through the cards, find all the cards that are about Phenax, show Phenax, mention Phenax, and build a deck that tells the story of Phenax, god of deception. I've never done that before, and that's going to take a lot of planning. If I go that route, which I might, because I don't have anything else like that, and it's an interesting direction. Really, a really unique take on how to construct the deck. And then Sigmund Kovacs, he was talking about it, and he mentioned that the library is supposed to represent a player's mind, and he remembers that Phenax messes with people. Maybe I can make up some kind of mess with people deck, force shuffles, morph creatures, swapping ownership of things, which doesn't go against what Paul Gaither said about making a deck about Phenax. But anyway, those are for future consideration. For now, I went with something completely different. So let me show you what I did with Phenax. I decided what I'm going to do is, since I have all the cards sleeved up, I'll go through my collection and I'll find cards that I haven't played for a while. I wonder if they're still viable. And right now Phenax is a test platform. He's a test bed for cards and strategies that I don't know if they work anymore. Either I've never played them because I didn't think they would work in the first place, or I used to play them and then I stopped. So some of them are return, some of them are a introduction of old concepts that I've never explored properly. So maybe now I can explore them. So the mana base, I've got 9 black producing lands, I've got 10 blue producing lands, and the reason for that is I have a Sol de Vie excavations, so I need an island to feed to the excavations, so that explains that imbalance. I'm counting the fetch land as produces either color because it's going to find a dual land more often than not. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Counting is hard, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 10 cards that produce both of my colors. They produce all the colors this deck needs. And then I've got these lands. These utility lands that don't produce any color. That can't wreck me unless I get Urborg out. So, High Market, Rolleratory Tower. I'm not sure if I'm going to need this. I have some draw effects in the deck, but as I play I might discover that I really don't care, really don't need to focus on having an unlimited hand size. So maybe I'll take this out. Nykthos, that's going to be pretty good in here. So Livy Excavations, I've owned one for a long time because of the art, because it's from Alliances. I have fond memories of Alliances, but I've never actually played with one. And now I'm going to, just to test it out. Cabal Coffers, of course. Thawing Glaciers. I've got a Walking Atlas in here to help me facilitate this. Academy Ruins and Volra Stronghold. So that's the mana base. I've got 37 lands. So let's look at the artifacts. Let me just cut down to the artifacts. So, I'm counting Phyrexian Metamorph as one of the artifacts. Yes, he's blue, but since I've got the option of just paying 3 and 2 life for him, I'm not going to be too picky, not going to count him as blue, because I split the deck 50-50 blue and black as it was in the very, very beginning. I've gone back to that just to make it easier on me. Scroll Rack. So there's some cards that I'm going to want to always have access to. Part of the deception, in my mind, is I want my opponents to feel like I always have a board wipe standing by, and I always have a counterspell. Scroll Rack will help me dig for those, and also if the card draw does work, and I'm drawing a lot of cards, it's going to help me trade cards I don't need now, of course, for cards that I do need now, more relevant to the current situation. So Scroll Rack is a new addition to this deck. Not a new addition to my collection or other decks. I've played with it a long time and loved it. Spell Bomb, I still have Mill in here, so sometimes somebody's graveyard is going to get scary and they're going to try to pull things out of it. So I need to stop them from pulling things out of it, and if I can draw a card in addition to that for my trouble, why not? Expedition Map, so I can find the half of the Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, and Cabal Coffer's combo I'm missing. Or if I choose wrong, and I grab one piece early, and then I'm not finding the other piece, I can put this back on top with Academy Ruins and do it again, just to make sure. Swiftfoot Boots and Lightning Greaves, so I've got some hasty things, ways to use them with creatures immediately. There's the Walking Atlas. His inclusion justifies Thawing Glaciers. Thawing Glaciers justifies his inclusion. It's a tautology. So 2 mana for a 1/1 construct. Tap, put a land card from your hand out of the battlefield. So if I tap him at the end of my opponent's turn, the one immediately preceding me, and I drop the Thawing Glaciers, it will come into play untapped on my turn, along with everything else, and I don't have to waste a land slot, a land play, my 1 land per turn limit on dropping the Thawing Glaciers. So it should speed up the thawing, which is slow. My god, is it slow, but it's effective. And trade-offs. Sword of the Animist, new addition to this deck. I was surprised how cheap this was. I somehow remember it being 20 euros. I got this foil one for 10 from the original set, Magic Origins. And the deck that I bought it for didn't need it after all. So I was sitting in my binder, and I thought, I need ways to get lands in Phenax. So Thawing Glaciers, backed up by Walking Atlas, and Sword of the Animist. Those are kind of the ways I have of crashing the lands into play. 1,000-Year Elixir. Now this I don't feel like I've fully explored it. This is mainly in here, so if I have Phenax in play, and I play any creature, I can immediately tap them to mill. If I have Eater the Dead, I can immediately tap him to mill, and then start his burning through people's creatures and milling them down cycle. So I want to really see how this works, so I added more creatures that tap, more creatures that have an activated ability that requires that haste can help. A creature with an activated ability that doesn't tap, shit, you can use that anytime. Like the Duskmantle Guildmage, his abilities don't require tapping, so if I have the mana for him, I can drop him into play and use his ability right away. No tapping required. So 1,000-Year Elixir, I want to play this more. Then from, let's put this back here. Then from Mana Rocks, I've got Soul Ring, Dimir Signet, Arcane Signet, borrowed it from Aurelia. I might replace it with the Star Compass just for the art, just because I like it. I noticed my LGS Trinity Tige had an original Planeshift Star Compass foil for a good price, and I've got some buy list credit. So I might give this back to Aurelia because she needs the speed, and put the Star Compass in Phenax just for fun. Talisman of Dominance, and Nyx Lotus. I'm not completely sure about this. Now, Manamo can untap it. I've got Manamo in here. Manamo can untap it because it's legendary. I've got something else in here, a couple other things. I've got at least 3 ways of untapping this the turn it comes into play. The question is, will I have any devotion that makes this better than a Thran Dynamo? I think I will, because I've got a decent balance of enchantments and creatures, permanents, that provide some devotion to blue or black. So I think this will work, but I need to test it in this deck. I know in a zombie it works great because she's mono blue. Back to the Metamorph. So let's look at the multicolor, and then I'll show you the black. So multicolored, keeping memory plunder, because I didn't go full war with the Phenax mill theme that I did before. I'm going to try some other things, but I'm keeping it in there just for fun. So with the mill theme, memory plunder, why not? Play an insert sorcery card in opponent's graveyard for free, and it doesn't exile it. So if I can get this back to my hand somehow, and I've found a way how, then I can do it again. Okay, I picked up this dude at my LGS. I wanted a foil one, but it was 20 euros, and they didn't have one anyway. And this guy was 2 euros, so I thought, I've got a foil one in another deck. I'll go with the flat one for Phenax, just so I have one. So have him go Lich. 5 for a 4/4 zombie wizard. And for 1, I can cast target creature card from graveyard this turn. Now, given that I'm blue and black, I'm severely limited as to what creatures I can play from my opponent's graveyards, unless they're playing blue and black as well. If I'm up against a red-white deck, I ain't grabbing nothing, because I can't produce white or red or white. But when he casts that card this turn, he gains all activated abilities of that card this turn. That can be useful. Psychic Strike, like I said, I want it to feel like I always have a counter spell. I have 4 counter spells and 2 pseudo counter spells in the deck, and a way of getting them back slowly. So Psychic Strike, counter target spell, they mill 2. Consuming Aberration. I'm playing Phenax. I'm doing some mill. I kind of need a Consuming Aberration. Power Toughness equals number of cards in all my opponent's graveyards, all the cards and not just creatures. Whenever cast a spell, they reveal and mill until they reveal a land card. So they mill until they get a hit a land, and then all that goes in their graveyard. Unless they had goddamn Kozilek Butchered Truth, and all gets shuffled back in their deck, and I'm just like, oh, that was a waste. Anyway, Dustmantle Guildmage. Keeping him in here. Now, I took out Mindcrank. If you did not see any of my other videos, I had Mindcrank in here. Mindcrank is whenever any opponent takes damage, they mill that many cards from the top of the library. So the combo is, you have Mindcrank, you have this guy. You activate, whenever a card is put into the opponent's graveyard from anywhere, this turn, they lose 1 life. So you just tap him with Phenax and mill them for 2, and that starts the cycle. So they mill 2 cards. Mindcrank says, oh, you mill 2 cards, you take 2 damage. He says, oh, you took damage, you mill cards. Down to 0. But I took out the Mindcrank because I don't want to combo deck, and I want to try some other concepts, some other ideas. But I can still activate him. Let's say I have Charx the Raging Isle, whose toughness is 17. I put him in play, I activate him. Phenax is in play, I mill them for 17. That's 17 damage. So just doing that, I can kill somebody. I don't really need the combo. I can play with my opponents a bit more. Lazav, Dimir Mastermind, he's a holdover from what I had previously. So of course he's hexproof. And whenever a creature card goes to an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, he can become a copy of it. Except he still keeps his name, and he's still legendary, hexproof, and has the ability, so he can keep doing it. The Scarab God, another holdover from the previous build. So, beginning my upkeep, each opponent loses X, and I scry X, where that's the number of zombies I control. Not a whole lot of zombies in this deck. That's not going to be happening very often. Mainly he's in here because he's an efficiently costed by old standards, by new standards, he costs probably 2 more than he should because of fucking power creep. But anyway, by my standards, he's efficiently costed. He's got a good ability where I can spend 4, exile a creature card from a graveyard, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's also a 4/4 black zombie. Neat. When he dies, I get him back. Even better. Rexiel, the Risen Deep. Whenever I've had him in play, he's always been fun. I like Rexiel. So he's got Island Walk and Swamp Walk. 2 for the price of 1. And where he punches somebody, I can cast an instant or sorcery card from their graveyard without paying its mana cost. And then it gets exiled. So unlike Memory Plunder, it exiles the spell I snatch and play for free. Ashiok. So spells and abilities your opponents can't search the library. That's pretty good. And then also I can make everybody drop 4 from the library into the graveyard and then exile everybody's graveyard. I tend not to do that too often because I want to steal things from their graveyard. But if they got things I can't steal because I've got Have and Go Lich and they're not playing my colors, for example, and it looks like they're going to start pulling things back out of their graveyard, well, I need to get rid of it. Cavern Harpy, I still have the Intrude Alarm in here. I still have the idea of the Intrude Alarm Cavern Harpy combo, where if I have Phenax and I play Intrude Alarm, I tap all the creatures to mill, all the creatures that can. I play Cavern Harpy, she comes into play, Intrude Alarm sees a creature that came into play, all the creatures untap, and I bounce a Cavern Harpy back to my hand. And then if I have an additional black and blue, I can mill more, and then play her again and untap them a second time in order to have them ready. That's the Cavern Harpy Intrude Alarm combo. I don't remember if I ever pulled it off. Evil Twin. So, clone that can kill whatever he's cloning. Don't know if I've ever used him successfully, but I still like the idea. Dimir Doppelganger. I don't like the art really. I don't know. There's something about it that I think it's her face. Her face looks weird. It looks like her chin is pulled to a point because of the makeup on her cheeks. I just don't like it. But anyway, so of course I need 6 mana to do it if I do it when she comes into play. Exile a creature card from graveyard from the game, and she copies that card. So if I can't get their creatures that have and go Lich, I can get it with her. Alright, so that's colorless. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This is where I really altered the deck. And I'm going back to the past. I'm digging shit out of the catacombs. That is an Italy Imp. I'm guessing a lot of you haven't seen one of these. And if you have, you probably forgot about it and don't really know what it does. So it costs 3, it's a 1/1 imp. I can tap him to force target creature an opponent controls that is not a wall to attack. If it cannot attack, it's killed at the end of turn. It dies. And I've looked it up a Gatherer to make sure that it works this way still, that they didn't do any bullshit errata. If the creature's already tapped, or if they tap it in response because they don't want to attack with it, it still dies. Now, it can't be used on creatures with summoning sickness, so if the way it would go, my opponent starts their turn, they play a creature. I cannot use Nettling Imp on that creature. If they have another creature, let's say they have a Cunning Spark Mage, tap, do 1 point of damage. So I can say, okay, the Cunning Spark Mage has to attack. And they can say, okay, in response, I kill the Nettling Imp with the Cunning Spark Mage. Fair enough, but the trigger is still there. And if you don't attack with the Cunning Spark Mage, and you can't now because you tapped him, it dies in a turn. So I want to see if this works. I want to see if this is at all useful. And it's Quentin Hoover art, so I have to love it. Same with Royal Assassin. I've got this revised Royal Assassin. So 3 for a 1/1 Assassin. Tap, destroy any tap creature. So if I have 1,000-Year Elixir out, and I play him, I can immediately tap him to destroy a tapped creature. And then I can spend 1, tap the 1,000-Year Elixir to untap target creature, and I can kill something else. So I want to see if he works. I want to see if he's still viable. That's wrong. I want to see if he's full stop viable, if he works at all, if he's useful in today's environment. So this is another creature I'm testing out. It used to be Royal Assassin and Norrit were a combo. So you'd force a creature to attack, and if they did attack, they would tap the creature and kill the Royal Assassin. If they didn't attack, it would die anyway through the Nettling Imp. Speaking of that, there's also Norrit, which is basically Nettling Imp that costs 3 in a black, not 2 in a black, and has the added ability to untap a target blue creature. Otherwise, he's Nettling Imp. So I'm doubling the effect. Still have my nice signed Eater of the Dead, because I want if I've got Phenax, I'm going to have Eater of the Dead. They go together. They're friends. They're brothers. They hang out. They go for beers after work. Murderous Rider, still running him. Swift End, kill the creature, Planeswalker, I lose 2 life. Oh well. And then play him. He's got lifelink. I get the life back. Oh yeah. Oversold Cemetery. So I don't have really a lot of creatures in this deck, but I do want ways of getting them back, and I could use Palace Siege, but Palace Siege costs 5, and even though it works immediately if I pick cons, when it comes into play the next turn, my next upkeep, I can just immediately choose a creature and bring it back to my hand. This costs only 2 instead of 5, and yes, I need 4 or more creature cards in my graveyard, but it comes down quicker, so I'm going to use this instead of Palace Siege. Beginning of my upkeep, I have 4 more creature cards from my graveyard. I can take a creature card from my graveyard, any one I choose. Rakshasa Debaser. So milling people, they're going to have creatures. Maybe I can't grab them with the Have and Go Lich. Maybe I don't have the mana for the Demir chick that I can't remember her name now. I hate it when this happens, but it happens a lot, so I get used to it anyway. So, when he attacks, put target creature card from defending player's graveyard under my control. You come work for me. Get up. So he's kind of expensive, 6 for 6/6. But if I play him, and if I've got the Greaves or the Boots, then he can attack immediately and I can get something back. Blood Chief Ascension. So I don't have the Mind Crank, but I thought this is kind of a good way of still gaining life. So beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, I can put a quest counter on the Blood Chief Ascension. If it has 3 quest counters on it, and a card goes into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, library, play, discard, doesn't matter, I drain them for 2. So if I'm, again with Charax, if I mill somebody for 17, then if Blood Chief Ascension isn't play and has 3 counters, I drain them for 34, and I gain 34. So Blood Chief Ascension stays. Beacon of Unrest. Put target artifact or creature card from any graveyard under my control, and then I shuffle it back in my library to find it and do it again. Perfect. King Makar the Gold Curse. I want to talk about 2 things with him. I was thinking, I can't be the first person to think about this either, but I was insufferably pleased myself when I did think of it myself, even though somebody is probably already doing it already. But I don't know about them, and whoever they are, do it yourself. If I have King Makar the Gold Cursed, And I equip him with, and these aren't in the deck yet. These are just things I want to try. I already had Freed from the Real. I picked up this Paradise Mantle. So if I give him Paradise Mantle, 0 casting this artifact, equip 1, tap him, add 1 mana of any color to my mana pool. And then if I can somehow enchant him with Freed from the Real, 2 and a blue, spend blue, untap enchanted creature. So if he has Paradise Mantle, and he's been freed from the Real, I can tap him for 1 blue, I can spend that blue to untap him. When he becomes untapped, I can exile one of my opponent's creatures and get a treasure token. So if I have this stack in play, at instant speed, I can exile all of my opponent's creatures and get a treasure token for each of them. As I said, that is not, these two are not in the deck yet. I've got so many other ideas I want to try that I'm going to set this off for a little while. If any of the other ideas don't work, I'll put them in. But yeah, I was pretty happy I figured that out. Liliana Dust Majesty. Paul Gaither and a couple of guys said, why don't you do self-mill? Well, why don't I? So let's start with Dust Majesty. 5 for a 5 loyalty planeswalker. +1, I get a 2/2 black zombie token. Put the top 2 cards from the library into my graveyard. -3, return target creature card from graveyard to the battlefield. It's also a black zombie. There's no other bullshit. There's no sacrifice it at the end of the turn. There's no return it to your hand. It just, you -3, you get a creature back for free. Why not? And then the -7, destroy all non-zombie creatures. So I'm going to try her on this deck. I've had her for a while, and I've almost put her into a lot of decks a lot of times, and now I'm going to see if she works. Phyrexian Obliterator. Yeah, I still want to try this in this deck, and by me making it half black, half blue, mana base, half black, half blue, I should be able to support him more effectively. I mean, 4 black in a 2-color deck, that can be kind of heavy. But anyway, he's my big scary threat. 5/5 trample. Whenever a source deals damage to him, that source's controller sacrifices that many permanents. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Blasphemous Act. Do 13 damage to all the creatures. Do it! Do it! No balls, I dare you! Massacre him. I couldn't believe this is only 200 crowns. About $10 US. I took this out for it. I took out Nemesis and a reason. Because I didn't feel like playing it, and it seems like Massacre Worm is going to be better in the deck than this guy. So yeah, he attacks. They put 10 cards into their graveyard from the library. They mill for 10. But yeah, I just thought, let's go for something a bit more martial. Let's go for Massacre Worm. Comes into play, my opponent's creature get -2/-2 till end of turn. Whenever creature an opponent controls dies, they lose 2 life. Speaking of dying, so if you recall, one of the problems I was having, let me pause this, and my camera's going to shut off soon, so I'm going to splice this together. So, like I was saying, one of the things about Phenax was it was kind of slow. And I presented my ideas that the setup phase of the game has gone from 4 or 5 turns down to about 2 or 3 turns. About 2 or 3 turns in, people start doing relevant things. And somebody said, well, what if you did something to kind of smash and slow down your opponents? Yeah, what if I did that? So I've got 4 or 5 board wipes in my hand for the deck. My plan is I will be setting up, and then I will board wipe as soon as I get one, and as soon as anybody has any creatures worth wiping. If they look at me funny, if they look like they're going to attack me, I'm wiping the damn board. So I've got Toxic Deluge. If I cast this in the early turns and I spend, say, 6 life, let's say somehow they've got cheated into play some 6/6 creature on turn 3 or 4, I'll kill it. If they've got a 6/6 creature, obviously this isn't going to do anything permanently. It will still be around, but it will wipe out all the small creatures. Black Sun Zenith, turn 4, I'll probably have, if I've got Soul Ring and Mana Rock, turn 4 I could have 5 mana. I could do 3 Negwa encounters on all creatures. That's going to wipe out pretty much all the creatures that started at the beginning of the game. And then it gets shuffled back in and I can do it again. So that Life's Finale, yeah, it costs 6. But it's got that tagline where I can search an opponent's library and pull 3 creatures out of their library and put them in the graveyard. So because that works with a lot of other things in Phenax, I'm keeping Life's Finale in. And I still have Damnation. Destroy creatures can't be regenerated. Full stop. So I've got 5 board wipes in here. I hope it's enough, because like I said, my plan is near the beginning of the game. So I'll be setting up, I'll be playing Mana Rocks. Maybe I'll play a couple creatures I'm not worried about because I can get them back. And then bang! Kill everything. So blue, let's go to blue. Then we'll be done. So, keeping Teferi, he's got 3 blue pips. So that gives me Devotion for Nykthos and the Nyx Lotus. He's flashy. He makes my other creatures flashy. And he slows down my opponents. So he's good here. Equilibrium. Cavern Harpy. Effectively with Equilibrium, Cavern Harpy says spend 1 blue, 1 black, return target creature to its owner's hand. And I'll bounce her back to my hand. So she becomes a pseudo boomerang if I have Equilibrium in play. Tezzeret the Seeker. Tezzeret is kind of overrepresented in my decks. I have him in at least 3 decks, maybe 4. But I had this copy in my art binder. I'd pulled him out of something I took apart. I can't remember what I took apart, but so he can untap the Nyx Lotus, as can Manamo. Another Mana Rock, so he can keep my Mana Rocks open. And then he can help me find a Mana Rock. He can help me find the 1,000-Year Elixir, Walking Atlas, all kinds of things. I mean, Tezzeret is just kick-ass. This Neg 5, that's not going to be relevant in in this build. I'm only concerned about the top 2. Thrix, the Sudden Storm. Yeah, he's going to be good in here because I've got a high mana cost. I've got a high curve. I've got a lot of 5 and 6s. A lot. And he makes them cheaper. And he makes them uncounterable. And he's a flashy flyer. Lemon. So some of my opponents have blue decks. And the blue decks have a lot of fuckery. And I want to fuck back. So if they're playing red-white, if they're playing green-black, she does piss all. She doesn't do anything. But if they're playing blue, and I can get her down past any counter spells, yeah, okay, your blue creatures, back to your hands, and keep them there. Superman, Morphling. Yeah, he does a lot of things. Blue, untap. Blue, he flies. Blue, he's shrouded. 1 colorless, he gets +1 neg1. Or, he gets neg1 +1. Do you want him powerful, or do you want him tough? And so I can make him tough, and I can keep untapping him. I can give him Shroud, and he works really good with Phenax. So, he stays. Thieving Skydiver. I thought I'd give this a try. So I looked it up in Gatherer because I wasn't exactly sure if gain control of target artifact means what I think it means. So 1 to blue for a 2/1 flyer, kicker X. When she comes into play, if she was kicked, and she will be, that's the only reason to play her, gain control of target artifact with CMC X or less. If it was an equipment, she gets it. And I keep control of it. It is now my equipment for the duration of the game. So I can move it around. My opponent simply can't pay the equip cost and get it back, which I was wondering if that's the way it would work. But looking at her on Gatherer, no. No, I've stolen it. You can't simply pay the equip cost and get it back. There's other effects that they can, but not her. Cherik, the Raging Isle. So in MH2, we got the green Urborg, right? We got Yavimaya Cradle Growth. What if in MH3 we get the blue version of that? If we get the blue version of that, oh, I'm going to get one. Now, there's a big risk I can kill Cherix with it, because 3, he gets plus X, nec X, where X is the number of islands you control. So if I have 16 lands in play, and I trigger that, then he'd be a 16-1, which is kind of shaky. If I have 17 lands in play, I can't activate that at all. But I don't think I'll ever have 17 lands in play in this deck. Usually I get to about maybe 10, 12. True Alarm. Creatures not tapped during the controller's untap steps. When every creature comes into play and tap all creatures. I explained this when I talked about the Cavern Harpy. Arcanus, the Omnipotent. A lot of blue pips for the Devotion. Tap, draw 3 cards. If I've got the 1,000-year elixir when he comes into play, I can immediately draw 3 cards with him, so even if my opponents kill him, I'll get some value out. But if I try to kill him and I've got 4 available, 2 and 2 blue, then I can just bounce it back to my hand to try again. Archaeomancer. So this will get me back Memory Plunder. This will get me back Toxic Deluge, Damnation, get me back a lot of things. I took her out of Muldratha because Muldratha now is able, there's Timeless Witness. And once I realized, wow, I could just shove a Timeless Witness in Muldratha, and then she has Timeless Witness, which gets any card, in addition to her Eternal Witness, which gets any card, instead of having Eternal Witness, which gets any, and Archaeomancer, which is restricted to instants and sorceries. So Archaeomancer is going into Phenax. Rhythmic Study. Do you pay the 1? Please don't pay the 1. I need the card. Fate Stitcher. Tap her and tap into the target permanent. So if I have 1,000-year elixir in play, I can do that immediately. He can tap the Nyx Lotus. He can tap Nikto Shrine of Nyx. He can tap pretty much anything. I need to clean that up. Let's set him over here and I'll clean him up. And then last, so I want it to always feel like I have a counter spell. I want my opponents to always think I have a counter spell ready. There's Psychic Strike. There's Memory Plunder, which can get me a counter spell if one of my opponents has played one. And then we've got Memory Lapse, counter target spell, goes back atop the library. And then the idea is I would mill it away. And then counter spell, counter target spell, disallow, counter target spell, activated ability, triggered ability. Narset's Reversal, which is not a counter spell per se, but if they do something where I don't want to stop the entire spell, I just don't want them doing it, such as Cyclonic Rift, such as that stupid 12 mana cost Eldrazi bullshit where you take another turn, you destroy 4 things, you draw a handful of cards. I forget the name of that thing, it's fucking annoying. So if I copy that, and it's uncounterable, so if I copy that, then I get to do all that bullshit, and Cube gets to put it back in his hand. Take that. Or if somebody does Cyclonic Rift, I copy the Cyclonic Rift, then it goes back in their hand, and they probably don't have the mana to overload it a second time in one turn. Usually they don't. And then Venser, Shaper Civil. Flashy comes into play, return target spell or permanent to his owner's hand. So this will stop a spell completely as long as they can't cast it again. As long as they don't have the mana to cast it again. So it's not a lot of counter spells, it's really only 4. These 3 counter spells, plus the Psychic Strike, and these two, but I think it's a sufficient number, and I think I have enough ways of getting them back that I can present the image of always having counterspell. If not, I can always slip in another one. I can always put in, I don't know, just cancel or spell crumple, something like that. Spell crumple used to be played all the time until they changed the command rule because people were getting pissed off. So that's what I have for Phenax. That's my test platform build. So it's not really a Phenax deck. It's not a mill deck. It's not a deck about Phenax. It doesn't tell his story. But what I want to do is explore a lot of the concepts I've shown you, a lot of the ideas I've presented, and see how they work. See if it's something I want to do in another deck. See if I want to expand on. I really want to test things out. But what I'd like to hear from you is, what do you think is a bad idea? What would you not do? Just your thoughts on it, because you guys have given me some great thoughts. I've been having a good time in the comments. And these cards, if you were to put those in, what would you take out? So again, one of the rules of my channel is, if you tell me a card to put in my deck, you need to tell me what you would take out for it. Because that's the tough part. I can look at cards all day and think, wow, this would be good for that deck. Oh, this would be good for that deck. But then it's, what would I take out? Oh, now my head hurts. Alright, lads. Cheers for it. Let me get this posted so I can start the conversation.